We're good.
Cool, got it. Just click got it.
Got it.
All right, perfect. Welcome, Nikki. All right. Let me know when we're ready, Claudia, so I can get started.
Okay, 1 second. It's not letting me go live. But you can start introducing yourself. This is paged. Okay,
Ready?
yes. Ready.
Perfect. All right, got it. It's being live streamed, so just go ahead and click on the live stream, and that way we can get started there. Everyone, we got it. Cool. All right, so welcome. Today is Thursday, March 9th, 6:30 p.m. Today's topic, it's an exciting one. Not really. It's a topic that sucks and nobody really wants to talk about. We're talking about the B word, and that's budget. Okay. Now, the cool thing about a budget is a budget dramatically changed my life and allowed me to become a millionaire. And that's why the name of this workshop is called Budget Your Way to $1 Million. Now, we'll get started with a couple of things here. Let me share my screen. So just so everybody, in case you don't know me, I'm Walter Lepe, CEO Lepe at Tendwell Properties. I'm a real estate agent, real estate broker, property manager, born and raised here in San Diego. And the cool thing is, I think the coolest thing about me is I have 49 tenants paying me rent, right, on a monthly basis. And I'm building another 50 ADUs right now. So I'm in a really good position in life. I don't have to work. And a big part of that is because I have a budget. Now, check this out. Here's a quote from Rich Dad Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki. Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. That's huge, and it's very important because it's true. You could give someone $1 million, but if they're not financially intelligent, they will spend and blow that $1 million. I listened to someone on Instagram yesterday say that most people look at money like a voucher to spend. Rich people look at money as a voucher to invest and to make more money and make money babies like we've talked about before, right? Now, this is very scary. Just 40% of Americans have $1,000 in case of an emergency. This means that 60%, 6 out of 10 Americans will go into debt when there's a $1,000 emergency. That's $1,000, guys. It's not a lot of money. And 60% of Americans do not have $1,000 extra in case there's an emergency. So we got to fix that. Now I'm reading this book. And by the way, I'm reading it. I'm going to share you guys the first tip of the night. I'm reading it, and it's called The Psychology of Money. Okay. Psychology of Money. And the cool thing is, you could either go and buy it for, $10 or 20 or whatever it is at the store, right? Or you could be like me and just be cheap about it. Let me see, I don't know if you can see here, but I'm reading it for free. Why? Because I have a library card and I just borrowed it from the library, and it's all digital now, and I get to read books for free, and I get to listen to audiobooks for free instead of buying them on Audible or whatever you guys do. So the app that I use is called Libby, Libby, and Cloud Library. You do need a San Diego Public Library card to borrow the book. It's not yours. You borrow it, and then you read it, and then you return it, just like a regular library. So it's small things like this, guys, that makes the difference between growing $1 million and being broke like most Americans that can't afford $1,000 emergency. Think about it. And this is just one little hack that I have. It's not even a hack. It's just, I'm just used to it. being thrifty my whole life and, saving money and things like that. Okay. So anyways, in this book that I'm reading for free, The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness, they mention this guy right here. Who's this guy? Ronald Reed. Okay, so let's read his Wikipedia together because it's pretty interesting. Ronald James Reed was an American philanthropist, investor, janitor, and gas station attendant. He grew up in Vermont in an impoverished farming house. He walked or hitchhiked to school 4 miles daily and was the first to graduate in high school in his family. He enlisted in the Army in World War II and served in Italy upon honorable discharge from the military in 1945, where he returned to Vermont. He worked at a gas station as an attendant and mechanic for about 25 years. Reed retired for 1 year and then took part-time janitor job at JCPenney, where he worked for 17 years until 1997 at the age of 75. Okay, that's when he retired. So that's the first thing to note. He worked until 75. Second thing is, Reed died in 2014. He received media coverage in numerous papers because he bequeathed $1.2 million to the Memorial Library and $4.8 million to the Memorial Hospital. Reed amassed a fortune of almost $8 million by investing in dividend-producing stocks, avoiding the stocks that companies that he did not understand, such as technology, living frugally, and being a buy and hold investor. So that's how he amassed $8 million, right? So this guy, again, he was a gas station attendant, guys, right? He didn't make a lot of money. He purchased a home for $12,000 in 1960, and he lived there with his wife and stepchild. He financed his stepchildren's education. His wife died in 1970, and he did not remarry. And it just talks about how he would just, have his coffee every morning at the same place, etc. And when he passed away, he left, about $6 million to the hospital and to the library, and then $2 million to his stepchildren, caregivers, and friends. Right. So this guy, he's a perfect example of how someone could not make a lot of money, but just control their money, do the right thing with their money, and end up a millionaire. And this is what this workshop's all about. It's the budgeting workshop. And obviously this guy, Reed, he had a budget, whether it was written down or he just had it in his head where he knew, I'm not going to overspend. And he was able to leave a legacy with his stepchildren, with the local library, and with the local hospital. Isn't that pretty interesting? Yes. And yeah, and I don't know how much money he made, Claudia, but I'm sure it wasn't, a lot of money working as a gas station attendant. But again, he saved and then he reinvested that. Okay, so now let's go back into the presentation. So again, just 40% of Americans have $1,000 in case of emergency. That's not a good stat for Americans. Now, this is another quote from the great Nipsey Hussle. Do I continue this lifestyle, shopping, clothes, or do I have to sacrifice a little bit because this is important to me? That's going to be the distinguishing factor or decisions, that ends up separating the ones that end up getting it from the ones that don't. So most people, the ones that don't end up getting it, they spend money on their lifestyle, shopping, clothes, etc. In Nipsey Hussle's case, he sacrificed. He sold his possessions in order to save up money and reinvest that money into his businesses. And then later on in life, when he started making residuals, then he started spending some money. What is a budget? A budget's an estimate of how much you will earn and how much you will spend monthly. That's all it is. It's an estimate of how much you will earn and how much you will spend monthly. That's what a budget is. budget your way to $1 million. This is the easiest way to become a millionaire, believe it or not. Just look at Mr. Reed's story. Most people think they have to make $1 million to be a millionaire, or make 6 figures to be a millionaire. You don't. All you need to do is have a budget, just like Mr. Reed. 2, you have to tell your money what to do monthly so it can work for you instead of you working for your money. That's the thing with me. It's for years, I would tell my money what to do, and I would pay myself first. I would say, okay, I made $10,000 for the month. You know, a high percentage of that, 60 or 70%, is going into a savings account. And then from that savings account, it goes into an investment account. And then the rest was going towards bills and living expenses. Okay, so I would tell my money what to do. And then from there, the money that I would save, 60% of my income, for many years, that money was working for me. So my money works for me at night. 3, what percentage of your money should you save? We're going to go over that, which is 20%, minimum 20%. Okay. 4, budget monthly using an app like Mint app. For years, I use an app, and I'll tell you more about that in a bit. And then number 5, this is a team effort. Your significant other has to be on board. I'll repeat that, guys. This is a team effort. Your significant other has to be on board, right? So if you're in a relationship with someone, living with someone, they have to be on board when you budget. And we'll go more into that in a bit. So this is what it looks like visually of why tell your money what to do. This is you taking control and telling your money what to do every time you make income. Or this is what most Americans do. They're controlled by their money. They don't tell it what to do. The money just flows out of their hands. So the first thing that we could talk about is the envelope system. Let me see if we have any more there here. Okay. Let me see here. This is the envelope system. What is it? Well, actually, let's skip ahead. I think it's better. So we could skip ahead. Let me exit out of here. So we could talk about how the budget works. And then afterwards, we could talk about how the envelope system is effective. Okay. So this is the actual budget form that you could use. Okay. It's very simple. Dave Ramsey, you could find it on his website. We have a copy of it too. If you want, actually, you could message Claudia directly, and Claudia could make sure you get the budget form after this. So it's very simple, guys. I'm going to show you guys right here. It's a monthly cash flow. And the monthly cash flow, you fill it out. And at the top, you put down monthly take-home pay. Let's pretend in this example, it's $10,000. So if you're making $10,000 that you're receiving on a monthly basis, that's $120,000 a year. And that could be you by yourself, or that could be you with your significant other. Your combined household income is $10,000. This is where you would write down the total amount, okay? And then from there, you tell your money what to do. So what's the first thing that you do? Right here, savings, right? So 20% is 2,000. So you put 2,000 into this little box. So every month you pay that's called paying yourself first. And once you have your 20%, then you can go and start paying other things. So for example, in this example, we have 10% to charity, which is another $1,000. And by the way, over the years, when I first started doing this, I wasn't budgeting for charity, or I wasn't tithing or anything like that. But over the years, I started making this more of a habit. And now it's part of my budget, where every month I'm giving away money. And it's good. It's good for your community. It's good for, so I highly suggest you put something in here, even if it's something small, to get you started, because that's what we're supposed to do is help out our communities after we help out ourselves first, okay? And then in this example, you have two, let me zoom in a little bit. You have two line items. One says spent and the other one says budgeted. In this case, you want to put, groceries, budgeted 1,000, then you spent 1,000, right? So that's just kind of doubling down. Restaurants, budgeted 250, spent 250. For easy, just to make it easy, I just put all the numbers the same, okay? And right here, this is cool because it tells you what percentage you should be spending on food on a monthly basis. So right here it says anywhere between 5% to 15%. One thing about restaurants, guys, I love restaurants. I love restaurants. I go to a lot of restaurants. And lately, what I've noticed at restaurants is like it got very, very expensive. Like you go, it's $20 for a burrito. It's basically any low-end restaurant is gonna be $30 per person, right? If you sit down and eat, minimum. And some of the restaurants I go to are pretty expensive, but they got even more expensive. And I'm finding myself at restaurants with a bunch of people, and my bill comes out to be, whatever, $150 a person, right? And I'm just thinking in my head, not everyone in here could afford that, right? I could afford that because I'm really good with money and I budgeted, and I have properties making money for me on a monthly basis. But most of America, guys, we overspend on food, especially on restaurants. And the person who taught me how to budget is my grandfather, and he would get upset if we ever ate at restaurants. He was not happy. Like, you're not supposed to eat at restaurants, you're supposed to eat at home. And that's what I learned from my grandfather. And I believe that most people are spending too much money on food. Okay. Anyways, just had to mention that. Okay, so for the month, if you're not buying any clothing, like in this example, you just put 0 here. Housing. Now you got to pay your mortgage or your rent, right? $3,300 for housing. We put it there. It should be 25 to 35% of your income. Okay, it shouldn't be more than that. It should be under 35%. Transportation. In this example, we said we budgeted 500, but we only spent 300. So I put 300 in here for gas. Utilities. We budgeted 110. We spent 100. Budgeted 120 for water. We spent 130. Phone 90. Internet 75 and 75. Okay, so 395 total. And by the way, is this between 5 to 10% utilities? It's a little bit less. It's like almost 4% of the $10,000 that we're budgeting for the month. Okay. The next page, this is a very simple 2-page budget, by the way. We have insurance. We have health insurance, 350, 350. We have auto insurance, 100, 100. That's 450 total. Recreation. We have budgeted 500 for entertainment. We only spent 300 for the month, so we put 300 there. And then this is where you list your debts. You have your car payment, you have your credit card debt, and you add it up right here. Then you have your personal stuff for the month. You have your subscriptions to Apple Music or Spotify or whatever it is that you have subscription to. Then you have pocket money to spend. So $200 in your pocket, so you can spend at the farmer's market or wherever. You add that up. So once we add everything up, guys, right here at the bottom, it says use the income sources form if necessary. So you have your $10,000 income, and then you add up all categories. So if you add up this category and every single category, you're gonna have $10,000 spent. So the goal of your personal budget is to have a 0 here at the bottom. What does that mean? That means that every single one of these $10,000 that you earned on a monthly basis, that you actually allocated it and you told your money where to go. You're in control of your money here. Therefore, you're left with $0. Okay, you already paid yourself first here for your savings and your investments. You already paid your charity or your tithing. You already put food on the table for your family, your gas for your vehicle, and all these things. So at the end, guys, you shouldn't have extra money. You should be zeroed out. Does that make sense? I'll stop here just real quick so you guys could ask any questions about how this should work.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to share, like,
Yes.
doing that is very helpful. I know the first time I broke down my expenses, it was an eye opener. And for a lot of people, if you're like, well, how do I know what my expenses are or what subscriptions I've enrolled in? What I did and what Voltaire taught us is print out the last month's bank statement. And I went, line by line of every debit taken out and made them into categories. If it's recurring, then it went into my budget list. And if it was a one-time, emergency or birthday expense of that month for someone, I just did it on a miscellaneous. And from just doing the list of all subscriptions, I cut at least 4 of them and saved about maybe $70 or so, because one of them was YouTube TV, which I didn't know was like $64. So,
Right.
so it's a big eye opener and a great way to put them on paper.
Yeah, and I agree with that, so and that's the right way to do it. Is when you first do this, print out all your credit card statements, your bank statements, and go line by line. That's what I do the first Sunday of every month. So on my calendar, the first Sunday of every month, what I have is my budget time in my calendar. And what I do is I come into my office because I got my computer, it's easier for me. I print out all my credit card statements, my bank statements, and then line by line, I mark it up and I go line by line, right? And I go, okay, and I add everything up. And what I do is I add everything up that I spent in. So for example, we're in March 9th right now. So I print out everything for February. And then I look at everything I spent for February and I have a good idea of what I'm going to spend in March. So I create my March personal budget the first Sunday of every month. And I know exactly what I spent in February and I project it onto March for the month. Okay. And yes, it's an eye opener. You're going to find out a bunch of stuff at first that you shouldn't be spending. And you're going to start cutting out all these things and start saving a bunch of money. So thanks for sharing that, Claudia. And by the way, this is so important, guys, that me and my team here at the office, on a monthly basis, we get together, I review everyone's budget. They turn in their budget to me. I review it. I make suggestions. We cut a bunch of stuff off. We save more money. And it's very helpful that way, okay? And over time, it becomes a game. And by the way, this is just a regular budget. Once you get more advanced, you come to me and I'll give you a more advanced budget. And the more advanced budget at the bottom here, it's gonna have your net worth, because that's what, at the end of the day, that's what we're after. And it's gonna have our net worth. And the goal every month that we play, the game that we play, is that every month our net worth has to be more than the previous month. And once you look back, 12 months into the past and 24 months into the past, and all of a sudden 5 years into the past, you start seeing your net worth go up over time. So we have to be conscious of that. But right now, this is the beginner form. This is a budget, okay? All right, so let's go back into the envelope system. Okay, so the envelope system, guys, the same budget we just went over, you could easily, this budget right here, transportation, clothing, savings, housing, utilities. If you feel that you're not good at controlling your credit card, okay, leave your credit cards at home and start using cash, even though it's getting harder. But this is the envelope system, where you have an envelope, and for restaurants, You put money in there for groceries, for your car, you put money in there. So for example, car, entertainment, groceries, you would just go back to your budget. And what did we say we had budgeted here? We had entertainment, $500 budget. So you go into your entertainment envelope, you put $500 cash, and guess what? If you're out and you're entertaining yourself and you're drinking, hanging out with friends, and they want to go whatever, go karting, and you reach in your envelope with entertainment money, and there's no more money in there, you have to tell your friends, hey guys, I would love to go with you guys, but I don't have any money to spend on that right now. I got to go home. And you take your butt home. That's like really how you start understanding your budget, right? Nowadays, it's too easy just to swipe the card and swipe the card and swipe the card. You don't have a budget. You're going to end up like most Americans. And that's not the goal. That's why we're doing this workshop, okay? But anyways, you don't have to go on Amazon to buy this envelope system. You just do it on your own. Just write down the name on the outside of each envelope. Okay, so let me go back here to the envelope system. Okay, so these are all the categories potentially your envelopes could have. Again, most people overspend on things like food, coffee, birthdays, baby showers. The more friends you have, the more birthdays and baby showers you're gonna have to go to, and the more money you're gonna spend, which sucks. Create a budget for each category and stick to it. Pretend you budget $500 for groceries and you get paid bi-weekly. So if you get paid twice a month, guys, when you get your first paycheck and your grocery budget is $500, just put half of their $250 into the grocery for those 2 weeks. Then when you get paid again, you put the other $250. 4, this is important. This is what I just mentioned. Spend only what you have in each envelope. You'll be tempted to use your debit, credit card, or cash from other envelopes once you run out of entertainment money for the month. Don't do it. Go get creative. Go on a hike for entertainment, or turn on Netflix. After the first time, it will be a lot easier. Okay. I know people who budget pretty well and they love hiking and they go on long walks and hikes, and but you'll never see them really spending money. Pay yourself first, no matter what. So this is a very important rule. So this means saving 20% of every dollar you earn and reinvesting that 20% into a safe stock account where you earn 5% over time. Or you can save it till you have enough money to buy some real estate and invest in real estate. Track your spending. What expenses should you track? Everything, every single penny that you spend. Make this a daily habit. So by the way, my story on this, and I started this over 10 years ago, was I had an app, okay? And every time I would spend money, I would go into the app and I would say, okay, $5 for coffee. I would even track when I would put money in the meter. So this is back then when it was like, they didn't take credit card in the meter. So you put like quarters. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, she hated it. Because she'd be like, dude, you're so dumb. That was 50 cents. Why are you putting it on your app? And also probably she got upset because I would take time to do it. And because I didn't want to forget how much I spent. So if I tipped somebody $1, I would go into my app and then I would have to like log it in and say tip $1, whatever. And she'd be like, dude, hurry up. So it takes time. And it does get annoying, and people with you, if they might get annoyed. But that's why I am where I am, because I would track every single thing. And then, like Claudia said, after the first month and after the second month, I would look at my tracker and I would say, man, like I'm overspending here, I'm overspending there, right? And yeah, you're right, Gustavo. That's why she is my ex. I think, and that's the other important part, guys, is everyone has to be on the same page. If you're a couple, you have to be on the same page. Because if one person is budgeting for the household but the household isn't, let's say the other partner isn't on board, then what's going to happen? When the partner says that isn't budgeting says, hey, let's go get some ice cream, or let's go, let's go out with our friends to Vegas. And if you're the one that's budgeting by yourself and you're like, no, we don't have money for that. Or, no, let's not go. They're going to think that you're unreasonable. They're going to think that you're a party pooper. They're going to think, whatever word comes up that you're being, because you guys didn't do it together. So if you want to, be happier, if you want to grow your wealth, you need the other person on board. It's almost the same thing as living with someone and you're trying to eat healthy and you're trying to, be on a diet or, eat some good food. And the other person has no clue you're even doing it or want to, or your goals aren't aligning. Guess what? They're going to buy a bunch of stuff from the grocery store that's unhealthy or fattening or whatever, and then it's going to be there in your face, and then you're going to start eating it, or it's hard to cook 2 different meals, so you just cook one. It doesn't work as well. So budgeting is the same thing. You need to be on the same page with your significant other. All right. So this is Nipsey again. Right? I had to take 2 steps back to take 10 forward. And that's when he talks about him having to sell his beloved car in order to get money to invest in himself. And he talks about how when he did that, all of a sudden his friends and the neighborhood didn't look at him the same, because he was like this, shot caller, some baller, with a really nice car and gold chains and all this. And then he had to take some steps back in order to take 10 forward. Okay. And that's how budgeting works. This is the other thing. We have to pay off your debt. If you're trying to grow any type of wealth, you have to pay off your debt. You cannot be in debt and become rich. So this is some concepts I want to share with you. Concepts of money to consider. When you pay cash, it's always going to cost less. You save more money / you make more money. What does that mean? My favorite fuzz spot in San Diego, they charge you 50 cents if you want to pay via credit card. So what do I do when I go to my favorite fuzz spot? I pay cash. I just save myself 50 cents. If I go to my favorite fuzz spot 5 times in a month, that's $2.50. If I go 12, if you multiply that by 12 months, that's $30 a year that I saved on credit card fees. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's how my mind thinks. And that's how your mind should think too if you're trying to build wealth. Same thing at the farmer's market. You don't want to be my friend and go with me to a farmer's market. Why? Because every vendor, when I buy, carrots for $2, I go, is the price the same if I pay cash or credit? And I ask everybody that, and then they go, no, we charge 50 cents for credit. And I go, okay. I'm like, would you waive it? No. Okay, here's cash. Right? Or I'm the person that shows up when they close at 2 p.m. I show up around 1:30 because I know they got to get rid of those vegetables. So now they give me a discount. Right? So that's like, that's how I grew up. Right? And that's how I was able to save. So anyways, the first concept to consider is when you pay cash, it always costs less. Okay, guys? B, when you finance something, it always costs more. Case in point, your insurance. Who pays here monthly for their insurance? For their car. Okay, for your car insurance, you pay monthly, right, Claudia? Well, guess what? It's costing you something, right? Because insurance policies are yearly or annually, okay? So you could either pay, as an example, $600 up front, or they'll say, hey, do you want to pay monthly? And then most people say monthly. They go, okay, cool. It'll be $55 monthly. And most people don't do the math that it's costing them an extra $60 10% to pay monthly. So if you're paying your insurance policies monthly, see about doing them annually. If you can't afford that to pay it all up front or every 6 months or whatever, that's fine. But just understand this concept that if you finance anything, it's always going to cost something. It's not free. C, cash on hand / carrying debts. This is a big concept that I want to talk to you guys about. I get a lot of people, and actually let me, I want to share with you guys maybe my screen over here, because I get a lot of people that come to me and they're looking to buy a house, right? And they tell me this. Let me see here, let me share. They say, Voltaire, I want to buy a house. I go, great. I go, how much cash do you have? They go, $25,000 cash. Cool, perfect, right? I go, tell me about your debt. And then they go, oh, you know, I just have one credit card. Not that much. I go, okay, cool. How much is it? They go, I owe $10,000 credit card. That's all my debt. And I go, I said, why don't you pay off your credit card? They go, no, because I want 25,000 cash just in case, you know, an emergency or whatever. So what they don't understand is that they're paying, you know, probably more now, but 18% to basically borrow your own cash that you have already, right? So if you owe $10,000 credit card, guys, and you're paying 18% annually, that's $1,800 a year that you're getting charged to borrow $10,000 that you already have in cash. So if it was me, I'd rather pay $10,000 in cash towards my credit card and be left with 0 credit card debt and $15,000 in cash instead of 25. Because now, how much money did I just make myself? I made $150 a month on that deal. Times 12 months equals $18,000 or $1,800, sorry, annually. You see how that works? So that's a very simple concept. If you have debt, you have to pay it off as soon as possible. All right. Ways to eliminate debt. Number 1, create a family budget. Number 2, use cash on hand to pay off all debt. 3, stop bringing on new debt. There's a lot of people that pay off old debt and then they go and get themselves new debt. It's not the way to do it if you want to increase your wealth. 4, use the envelope system. 5, use the debt snowball. So this debt snowball, turn on events. How do I get that? Pay down my debt.com. Back to safety. No, I don't know. All right. So there's something called the debt snowball, which we talk about in a different class, but you can download it. Okay. Number 6, stop loaning people money. This was a big thing for me in my growing up in my youth. People would ask me for money all the time, and I would lend people money, and they wouldn't pay me back. And then all of a sudden, I didn't have the same relationship with that person, because even in the Bible, they say that the borrower is a servant to the lender, and, you know, and the lender is the master and the borrower is a servant. And that's the type of relationship you create, guys, when you lend people money, because now they owe you money. And if they're your friends or your family, you don't want to create that. So the best thing to do is say, no, I don't want to loan you money. And guess what? When I first told somebody that, I said, you know what? I have a policy. I don't lend people money. I thought they're going to be mad at me. I thought they're going to hate me. But to my surprise, all they said was like, "Oh, that's cool. No worries. Don't even trip." And then they just picked up the phone and called the next person. So it's okay to say no. And if you make it a policy, like I did many years ago as a kid, then people can't question you because they're like, okay, like that's his policy. That's her policy. It's like, I have a policy. I don't kiss on the first date. So it's like, I tell the girls like, I don't kiss on the first date. That's my policy. Right. So they can't, what are they going to say? Oh, no, you have to, right? They won't get mad at you. Don't lend people money. By the way, I made that policy up. I seen Claudia looking at me like, what? So that's stop loaning people on 7. Stop cash advances. Man, check this out. Every month I get paid, rents from my tenants, and I get a lot of rents every month. And there's a lot of tenants that pay me cash, like more than I would guess. I'm like, why are they paying me cash? They go to cash advance places and they cash their check. And it's a lot of my tenants that are Hispanic that maybe don't have bank accounts or something. They're getting screwed off those cash advance places. They're paying crazy amount of money just to cash their checks. So if you're doing that, stop it. Stop going to your local liquor store and cashing your check. Go into your bank, deposit it, or cash it for free. And pay cash instead of credit. Farmers market, restaurants, mom and pop shops. This is how you start creating a really nice personal budget for yourself. There's examples of the personal budget we just went over. If you want references, there's a book. Dave Ramsey wrote a book. I took his course on that book. It was called the book, The Total Money Makeover, right? And I read this book and I took a little course in it at church, and it just shows you how to live debt free, right? So I agree with almost everything he says, except for the part that debt isn't good when it comes to any kind of debt. But I think he just wrote that because most people don't understand debt, right? But debt in real estate could be really, really good and beneficial. But long story short, that's a good book to read. Okay, so I have a lot of clients. I have a lot of really, really rich clients. And this is I called them all because I was doing this workshop for kids where we were teaching financial literacy. And I said, hey, give me your #1 advice for kids. So this guy that's worth 70 million, he said, save and invest 20% of all your income / allowance, download the Robinhood app and buy 10 stocks that you like and keep doing that all the time with your money forever. That was kind of the same idea that this guy, Ronald Reed, did when we first started this, right? He saved from every single paycheck. He lived frugally and he reinvested that money into his investment choice, right? Which is blue chip companies, big companies. So if you look at all these millionaires that I interviewed, this millionaire is worth $6 million. His advice was save, even if it's $1. This millionaire who was $3 million, she said, save what you want, then spend the rest, not the opposite. This person, $12 million, save and invest those savings. Do you see like the continued theme behind millionaires and their advice to kids if they want to grow up wealthy? You see a lot of save. Okay. What questions do you guys have about the budget or how to implement any of this? This is a good question time if you guys have any questions. Don't be shy either, because I'm really good with money. I created a large personal net worth through budgeting. So any questions on money, any questions about budget, now's the time to ask. And other people learn from those questions too.
Well, I think the hardest part is when you have like Apple Pay and when you have lots of different platforms that you're paying things on, like Amazon. Amazon is
Mhm.
my success. I mean, I spend so much money on Amazon. I have the subscribe and save. I have things that I buy for my business. I have things that I just buy in general. And there's sometimes household stuff that goes out there. Sometimes there's stuff for clients. There's sometimes stuff for kids. And it's just like the money, I feel like money just disappears.
Yeah. Yeah. So your question on that is like how to get organized, or what's the
Yeah, how
exact
do you
question?
keep track of your money when it's going through these other platforms that are all digital? It's not just like you have cash or credit card. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, good question. I want to see if I could find a sheet that I use that maybe doesn't have too much. Here we go. Let me see if I could maybe. All right, so check this out. So two things to answer your question. That's a great thing. So every month, Angie, what I do is I print out every single statement that I have. And if you look at my phone right here, I go in each one. I go on my Schwab account, my PayPal account, my Venmo account, my SDCCU, my Wells Fargo, my Coinbase, my Citibank, my TD Ameritrade, my investor portal. So I have all these things, right, that I go in and I actually count line by line. And you mentioned something in there that's pretty interesting, which you said I have stuff for clients, or so you're a business owner. So what I do is I separate both. I do a personal budget, which is called the profit and loss for my business every single month. Every single month I hand do it. Okay. And then every single month I do my personal budget based on the profits that my business gave me. Now, people have asked me, how come you don't get an accountant? How come you don't get a bookkeeper? I do. I have several, but I double check their work. Why? Because it's my money. It's the most important thing that you're going to do. It's one of my most important jobs on a monthly basis to count my money. Now, what I do also is I do something very, very simple, right? Like this, right? A little spreadsheet. I have all the different accounts that I have. And then next to it, what you don't see over here is balances. So I have my balances over here. I have this right here. And that's how I basically count everything that I have. And I stay organized with spreadsheets. And it's not easy. It does take a lot of work. All right. What other questions?
There's a question on the chat.
Okay.
What
So
would be a good start for investing?
Okay, so first and foremost, my recommendation before you even think of investing is you pay off your debt. So I know earlier I said pay yourself first. What that translates to, if you have debt, and what do I consider debt? Any credit card debt. Okay, that's debt to me. If you have credit card debt, medical stuff, you pay all that first. Okay, so instead of investing it into some type of interest-bearing account, some stock markets or real estate or something, pay all that debt off first. It's okay to have house debt. It's okay. It's okay to have potentially some type of car loan if the interest is super low, under 4%. It's okay. But if the interest rate is higher than that, then I want you to accelerate and pay that off at a faster pace than normal, okay, to get rid of that debt. And then after that, guys, if there's money left over, then you could invest. Then you could invest into student loan debt, same thing, pay it off. if it's earning interest, and that's money you're losing. Okay, so let's pay that off. And then after that, then we could talk about investing, which is, more complicated topic. Obviously, I love real estate. I've been investing in real estate for a long time. It's done very good for me. But most of the financial people would tell you to invest into some type of dividends paying stock, like Mr. Reed did in that example we gave earlier, or into like the S&P 500 or something like that. But that's all long term. Don't think you're going to get rich overnight. This budgeting thing, long term, you're not going to get rich overnight. Okay, so let's get rid of that debt first, and then we could invest our money from there. All right. What other questions you guys have?
What about student loan debt?
Yes, pay it off. If it's earning interest, there's some student loan debt that isn't earning interest, just sitting there. If you're just sitting there, you're not paying interest, okay? That's one thing, but if you're paying interest on it, you got to get rid of it. You got to pay it off. And if you have questions on how to do that, we have a class called the how to pay off debt. And then we go over the debt snowball in detail and how to use it in order to be debt free. What other questions you guys have about money, about budgeting? Cars and buying. I'm assuming you're asking like, should you be buying cars or so my first car I bought, I would say buy, don't lease. Okay. And you want to buy a car, a used car, 30,000 miles, and then you get rid of it around 70, 80,000 miles. And that way you can get the most bang for your buck. Now, when you buy a car, like my first car, I drove it from 0 miles to 307,000 miles. So I put more than 300,000 miles on my car. It was until it broke down for the last time. And that's when I got rid of it. I got myself a new car. So for many years, I was driving a messed up car, but I didn't have a payment. And I was able to save a lot of money and reinvest that money. So that's what I think about cars. And you only buy nice cars once you start making enough money from your assets. Okay, so with your money that you're saving, you buy assets. And then once those assets start to spit off rents or dividends, that's when you start using those rents to fund your lifestyle, to fund your cars or whatever you want to buy. Because question, how to negotiate an old credit card debt. Okay. So what I would do in that situation, I would hire a credit card person. We have a guy that could do that, and I've never had to do it. But what you want them to do whenever you do negotiate it, Vanessa, you want them to report it as paid in full. Okay, because if they report it that you paid less than what is owed, then it's going to affect your credit. It's going to come up like probably a charge off or something like that. So you want to make sure that whatever you negotiate, that is paid in full, and that way your credit is good. Now that leads to another thing, credit. Credit is a great thing. The better credit you have, the more money you'll make. For example, I have good credit. I've always taken care of my credit. And right now I'm borrowing money from a bank at 3.5% interest rate. That interest rate does not exist, but exists for me because I have great credit. I have good relationships with the banks and they let me borrow money. So by me borrowing money at 3.5%, right? And I'm buying assets for that cheap money, I'm making a lot of money, right? So take care of your credit. But if you need a credit expert, message Claudia should get you that information. what other questions you guys have? Money or budgeting? Okay, I think that's about it. So, what would you do with $30,000? Okay, so what I would do with $30,000 if you paid off all your debts, if you don't own a home, that's enough to buy a home. I would go buy a home. I think real estate's a great thing. I don't think you should be renting. If you already own a home and you have $30,000, what I would do is the U.S. Treasury, maybe about 2 weeks ago, they were offering, I believe, 5% interest on a 90-day or a 3-month treasury. Okay, what does that mean? That means that you loan the federal government, the US government, those $30,000, they'll pay you 5% return on that money. And it's basically, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no risk, it's risk-free. Why is it risk-free when you loan money to the federal government? Well, because the only way they could default on that $30,000 is if the U.S. economy tanks and the U.S. as a nation folds. But if they're paying you 5% interest on $30,000, that's $1,500 for the year, divided by 12, and times 3 months, you just earned $375 from transferring the $30,000 you have in the bank to one of these U.S. Treasury that the U.S. government is giving you money on. So instead of making zero at the bank, you just made $375 over a 3-month period. And then, so that's what I would do, is I would find those type of investments with that type of money if I don't own a home. And then, by the way, over time, that 5% grows, and then you have enough to buy your second home. Would you ever do a manufactured home? Not inside of a mobile home park, no. I would do a manufactured home if it's on permanent foundation and you own the land underneath. If you don't own the land underneath, I wouldn't do it. All right. Great questions. What do you think about certificate deposit? I like them if they're paying you a good amount. So that amount that I just shared with you guys that the US government's paying is 5%. I think American Express is paying like a 5% of deposit too, a certificate of deposit. Also, it depends how long, right? If it's 2, 3, 4, 5-year certificate of deposit, which is a CD, you hear it as CD, that might be too long for me, right? Because I might want to use my money sooner than that. I might want to buy a piece of real estate sooner than that. So it depends how much and for how long, Jessica, with a certificate of deposit. But if you just have cash in the bank, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and you can find a CD for 3 months or 6 months or a year that pays 5% or more, yeah, put it in there and then earn that interest. And then once you get that money back plus the interest, then you could, invest into some real estate. Great question. Any other questions? Cool. Nothing on Facebook, Claudia? We're good? All right.
More comments or questions, but just wanted to remind everyone of our Eventbrite page. If you want to go follow, that's where we'll drop all our workshops of the year and any events that you guys want to stay in the loop for.
Cool. And then that leads me to whoever invited you to the workshop, whichever Lepe, Tendwell real estate agent, go on their Yelp, go on their Google page, Facebook page, Zillow page, and give them a 5-star review and just say, hey, this Lepe, Tendwell agent invited me to this workshop. It was beneficial. It was helpful. And I highly recommend them. Because if you do that for us, guys, we don't get paid for this or anything. We're just trying to help you guys out. But it'll help us out a lot with those reviews. That way in the future, when someone says, well, should I trust this company? They could say, yeah. and because they'll see your 5-star review to us, and that'll be awesome. So fix my credit and buy a home. Exactly, that's what you should be doing. And Jessica's asking for the budget list. So if you want to send that blank budget, Claudia, please. And then that way she has access to it. So we appreciate you guys. We have an email right there. Claudia, if you want to, before we call it. So thank you guys for joining. We'll see each other next time. If you guys have any questions, reach out to your favorite Lepe Tendwell real estate agent. And thank you for coming. See ya. All right.